22 years later, the jaw-dropping truth about my mom and husband. In the blink of an eye, my life was turned upside down. The man I thought I knew, the father of my children, was caught in a compromising position with a woman who was supposed to be my rock, my mother. I couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. The memories of our 22 years together were shattered into a million pieces. I remembered the days when my husband and I would laugh together as if the world were our playground. We were young and in love, and our love seemed like it would last forever. But I was wrong. As it turned out, our relationship was a facade, a carefully constructed illusion designed to hide the truth. My mother's presence in my life was always a subject of controversy. We never really spoke about our family dynamics, and I never questioned her involvement with my husband. I guess ignorance is bliss. But now I had to confront the harsh reality. The sound of shattering glass was all I could hear as I stood frozen in the doorway, witnessing the aftermath of their secret trysts. My mind was racing with thoughts, trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle that was my life. The once happy moments, the laughter, the children, all seemed like lies now. I couldn't bear the thought of sharing a home with the man who betrayed me in such a way. But more importantly, I couldn't live with the fact that my own mother was responsible for destroying the only life I knew. It was a double whammy, a 1-2 punch to my gut, leaving me reeling from the betrayal. In that instant, I knew I had to make a choice: to forgive, to leave, or to fight. Forgiveness seemed like a distant dream. I couldn't forgive the man I loved for this betrayal. Leaving the familiar walls that once held our memories meant starting anew, but scars would forever remain. Then there was fighting, a phrase that echoed in my head like a mantra, but fighting for what? My marriage, my relationships, or my sanity? The road ahead was uncertain, full of surprises and twists I had never imagined. But one thing was clear: my life would never be the same, and I had 22 years of lessons to learn, one painful truth at a time. I married Tom when I was just 18. Young and naive? Absolutely. But we built what I thought was a beautiful life together. 6 children later, we were living the American dream, or so I believed. We even lived close to my parents, which I thought was a blessing. Mom would help with the kids, and we'd have these wonderful family dinners every Sunday. These Sunday dinners seemed like the epitome of family life. We'd all gather around the table, sharing stories and laughter. But looking back, I realized those gatherings were a facade. A perfect facade that Tom and my mom had created to hide their true intentions. Behind closed doors, their relationship was complicated. My mom had been a constant presence in our lives, helping with homemaking and childcare, but it was as if she was also suffocating us with her overbearing behavior. Her constant need for control was suffocating my marriage to Tom. At the time, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. But now, as I look back, I realize that my 16-year-old brother was trying to send me signals, telling me in subtle ways that something was not right. He'd hint at his father being around during certain holidays, but Tom would swiftly change the subject or deny it outright. Those red flags now make sense. My father, whom I considered to be this pillar of strength and love, was having an affair with my mother the entire time we were married. I want to emphasize that this was a clandestine affair, one that sought to destroy the marriage of the woman he promised to love and cherish, for better or for worse. And yet, despite all the chaos they created, they still dressed up their secrets in the guise of family love. This wasn't the family I grew up with, or was it? Sometimes I wonder if my parents' affair started way before I did. The thought of my mom possibly raising children of Tom's without our knowledge is something that I wish I could erase. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day where the sun beats down on the house and the air feels thick with heat. I had come home early from my yoga class because I pulled a muscle. As I walked up to our bedroom, I heard, well, let's just say sounds that no daughter should ever hear coming from her mother. I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe that muscle strain had given me a concussion, but nope, there they were. My mother, the children's pastor at our church, and my husband of 22 years doing the horizontal tango in my bed. I was frozen in shock, unsure of how to process what I was seeing. My mind was racing with questions. Was this some kind of wild fantasy brought on by my injury? Or had I stumbled upon a secret that was meant to remain hidden? I felt like I was living in a bad dream, like I was just waiting for someone to wake me up and tell me it was all just a joke. But as I stood there, my gaze fixed on the compromising couple, I knew this was all too real. The bed was in disarray, with sheets pulled off and pillows scattered all over the floor. It looked like a miniature tornado had hit the room, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. I felt like I was reliving my childhood nightmares, when my parents would fight and storm out of the house, leaving me feeling scared and alone. But this time, the roles were reversed. This time, it was my mom and husband, two people I respected and admired, making a mockery of our family values. As I stood there, crippled by shock and hurt, I couldn't help but think about the implications of this reckless behavior. How long had they been carrying on this affair? Had they been lying to me all these years, hiding their true intentions behind a facade of marital bliss? I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, and I stumbled backwards, collapsing onto the couch in the living room. My yoga mat, still neatly folded on the entryway bench, seemed like a cruel joke now. All I had wanted to do was relax and unwind after a tough practice, but now I was faced with the traumatic reality of my mom and husband's reckless behavior. I couldn't even begin to wrap my head around this revelation, so I sat there in stunned silence, my mind numb and my world turned upside down. The confrontation that followed was like a bad soap opera. Tom just stood there, wearing nothing but his guilty conscience and my grandmother's quilt. And my mother? She had the audacity to say, "Honey, we need to talk." Need to talk? 22 years of lies, and that's what she comes up with? I was taken aback by her words, mostly because they came so easily to her lips. It was like she'd been practicing that line for years, waiting for me to discover the truth. My mind was racing with questions, but before I could even process what was happening, she continued talking. "Honey, I know this is a lot to handle," she said, her voice laced with a false sense of empathy. "But we need to be upfront with you. Tom and you were adopted when you were just an infant. Your parents, people we loved and trusted, made a choice to keep this secret from you. It wasn't easy for us, but we thought it was for the best." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Adopted? Why hadn't they told me? And what did Tom have to do with all of this? I looked over at him, and for the first time, I really saw him. He was just as stunned as I was, and I wondered if he knew all along. My mother's words kept spilling out like a river. "We knew you deserved a better life, a life with parents who could provide for you. That's why Tom's family adopted you. They were young and in love, and they thought they were doing the right thing." Everything was a blur after that. I don't remember much of the conversation that followed. I think I just walked away, leaving Tom and my mother to fend for themselves. The whole thing was just too much to handle. The bomb that dropped next was even bigger. My twin brothers, who are 21, might actually be, wait for it, my husband's kids. I know, right? Just when you think it couldn't get any more Jerry Springer, it does. My poor dad nearly had a heart attack when he found out. My siblings? They're divided like a pie at a dysfunctional family reunion. As I sat in stunned silence, trying to wrap my head around this jaw-dropping revelation, I couldn't help but wonder, what else have we been keeping from each other all these years? I mean, think about it. My entire life has been turned upside down. My mom was never who I thought she was. My husband is... Well, I'm not even sure if I can call him my husband anymore. This is like one of those DNA test shows where people discover they come from completely different families. My thoughts were interrupted by my husband's voice. He looked at me like he knew I was thinking what everyone else was thinking. "We can talk about this later," he said. I wasn't sure if he was trying to reassure me or just delay the inevitable. Little did I know, our family secrets were only the tip of the iceberg. What other surprises lay hidden beneath the surface? I've kicked Tom out faster than you can say betrayal. He's now shacking up with, you guessed it, my mother. They're actually trying to play house while I'm fighting for full custody of my children. The irony? The irony? He's claiming he's a family man. Yeah, so family-oriented, he created two families. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm living the ultimate nightmare. fighting to protect my own children from their father's lack of commitment and integrity. As a single mother, I'm taking on the majority of the responsibilities while dealing with the emotional toll of it all. I tried to hold on to hope that things would change, that Tom would come back to me and our kids, but deep down, I knew it was just a pipe dream. The day I caught them in a compromising position was the final straw. I'd had enough of his lies and deceit. It was time to take action and stand up for my family. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd have to fight for my own children, but here we are. The court system is taking its time, and it's been a grueling process. Emotional, time-consuming, and expensive. It feels like I'm in a never-ending battle. On the surface, it looks like Tom and my mother are living the perfect life. They're posting pictures of their happy family on social media. But beneath the facade, I know the truth. My mother's constant texts and phone calls asking for updates on their love life are a constant reminder of what I'm up against. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's shouldering the bulk of the responsibility. I'm working hard to provide for my kids, making sure they have everything they need, while Tom in particular seems to think he can just coast on my efforts. It's infuriating to think about the fact that he's playing house with my mother while my kids and I are struggling to make ends meet. The more I think about the situation, the more I realize the sheer audacity Tom and my mother have shown. Not only did they attempt to destroy my family, but they're now attempting to create a new one, a family that doesn't include me. It's a painful reminder that family dynamics can be unforgiving and complicated. As a mother, it's hard not to take it personally, but I know I have to stay strong. I'm not just fighting for my kids, I'm fighting for a truth that needs to be exposed. The narrative that Tom has spun about being a family man is a facade, and I'm determined to shatter it, once and for all. The fight is far from over, but I'm ready. I've been through the storm, and I've come out the other side stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. It's time to reveal the jaw-dropping truth about my mom and husband, a truth that will shake the very foundations of our family. It's not uncommon for children to be confused when they see their single parent start a new relationship with someone from their past, especially if that someone is a former spouse. Taking things step by step can really help. When my youngest asked if this meant they have to call their uncle their brother now, I thought that was a pretty fair question too. It shows they're really thinking about how this situation is going to affect them. For now, we're just focusing on helping my husband adjust to his new role around the house. It's tough, maybe even harder for him than for the kids, as he's having to navigate a relationship with someone who has a history with his significant other. Grandparents staying involved in the lives of their grandchildren often provides built-in support, regardless of what marital status might look like now. I'm certainly just grateful that both parties are committed to making the most of this complex situation. While changes will undoubtedly force everyone to adapt, we do want to emphasize how much this new relationship can benefit our children in the long run. Family dynamics can evolve with surprising opportunities when no one expected them. Tom's true colors came out like a bad dye job. He actually tried to convince me that he was the victim here. That somehow, falling into bed with my mother for 22 years was an accident. Apparently, he just tripped and fell for 2 decades straight. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was he serious? Or was he just playing another round of his favorite game, deflection? As I sat there staring at him in shock, he continued to spin a web of deceit. He claimed that his actions had nothing to do with him and that my mother was somehow to blame for his infidelity. I couldn't help but think of all the times he had gaslighted me, making me question my own sanity and perceptions. It was a clever trick, one that he had mastered over the years. But this time, I was not buying it. I had caught him red-handed and there was no denying the truth. My eyes wandered to the photos on the coffee table, memories of our family gatherings and happy moments, now tainted by the dark secret that lurked beneath the surface. And my mother? Oh, she's a piece of work. She got fired from her position as children's pastor. Shocking, I know. And her defense was, we couldn't help our feelings. Really, Mom? You couldn't help your feelings for 22 years? What about your feelings for your own daughter? As I sit here, replaying all the memories of my childhood, I realized that my mom's obsession with the church was not just about spreading God's love, but also about validation. She was desperate for attention and applause from the congregation, who she felt admired and praised her for her piety. But the truth is, Mom, you were using those children as a means to feed your own ego, to stroke your self-importance. And don't even get me started on how you treated me. I was just a child, and yet I always felt like I was an afterthought in your life. Your husband, Dave, was always your priority, and I was just an inconvenient truth that got in the way. You blamed me for 22 years of your problems, Mom. You blamed me for your relationship issues with Dad, for your lack of fulfillment, for your general unhappiness. But the truth is, Mom, the problem was never me. It's interesting that you mention feeling unable to control your emotions, Mom. Because what I remember about you is a woman who was always in control, always manipulating those around her to get what she wanted. You're a master manipulator, Mom, and I'm not impressed. And another thing, Mom, is how you conveniently forget your own shortcomings when it comes to your defense. Like, remember that time you got into a heated argument with me at church and accused me of being selfish? Or what about that other time you grounded me for an entire week because I didn't meet your expectations? You were always quick to judge me, Mom, but you never wanted to take a hard look at yourself. I could go on and on about the ways in which you've hurt me, Mom, but the fact remains that you're still hurtling through life without acknowledging your own part in the drama. It's time for you to take responsibility for your actions, Mom, and to start working on your own personal growth. But you know what? I'm rebuilding. One day at a time. I've got my kids, my therapy sessions, and surprisingly, a much better relationship with ice cream than I've ever had with either my ex or my mother. Silver linings, right? It's funny how the simple things in life can bring so much joy. I remember the old days when my mother would get on my nerves so bad, I'd turn to the nearest convenience store for a temporary escape. But now, after all these years, I've learned to appreciate the little things in life, like a cold pint of my favorite ice cream. It's become a distraction from the stress of day-to-day life. As I sit here writing this, I'm filled with a mix of emotions. Guilt, sadness, anger, all these emotions clash within me as I think back to the times with my mother. But I'm learning to let go and be kind to myself. It's not easy, but I'm taking it one step at a time. My therapist has been a great help in this journey to self-discovery. He's taught me coping mechanisms and how to manage my emotions in a healthy way. It's amazing how far I've come, and I'm proud of myself for taking control of my life. My kids are my motivation. They look up to me, and I want to be the best parent I can be for them. So I'm taking this journey one day at a time, focusing on my own healing and growth. So here I am sharing my story with you all. If you're going through something similar, though I really hope you're not, because, wow, just remember, you're stronger than you think. And if nothing else, you've probably got a better mother than I do. As I reflect on my past, I'm reminded of all the times my mom would neglect and abandon me. It's surprising how much resilience and growth can come from such a difficult upbringing, but I'll never forget the lessons I learned from it. And if you're one of the lucky ones who never had to go through this, consider yourself blessed. For those of you who have experienced something similar, I want you to know that you're not alone. I may not have the most supportive family, but I've learned to find my strength within myself. Don't get me wrong. My mom may not have been the most supportive, but I've definitely learned a thing or two from her. Like how to not be like her, actually. I guess you could say our relationship has been a bit of a roller coaster ride over the years. It's funny how life can be so unpredictable, and yet we often find ourselves stuck in situations that seem impossible to escape. But the truth is, every experience, even the difficult ones, has a purpose. It's all about how we choose to interpret them and grow from them. So, if you're sitting at home right now wondering what to do with your life, just remember, you've got the power to create the life you want. Don't let anyone, even your own family, bring you down. And if all else fails, you can always try to laugh your way through it, like I do. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about my crazy life. Trust me, this is just the tip of the dysfunctional iceberg. Drop a comment below and let me know what you would have done in my situation. Just keep it family friendly, unlike some people I know. As I close out this chapter of my life, I want to leave you with a final message of hope. Life may be unpredictable, but it's full of opportunities for growth and learning. Don't be afraid to take risks, to try new things, and to push beyond your comfort zone. And remember, folks, when life gives you lemons, make sure your mother isn't stealing them to share with your husband.